Hi, this is Andreas speaking from Kassel, Germany. This is the first part of our mini-series Understanding Life Through Philosophy, and we will deal with the first big question: does life have a meaning? To get some answers to these questions, we will refer to the three time periods of European philosophy: ancient Greek philosophy, medieval philosophy, and modern philosophy. Let's start with Greek philosophy. One central question of ancient Greek philosophy was, what is the good life? And unlike modern philosophers, Greek philosophers were convinced that you can find an answer to this question, and this answer is not related to any subjective idea about a good life. So what is a good life and what gives meaning to life? Socrates, as the first Greek philosopher, is concerned to establish two main points. Happiness is what all people desire, and it is always the end goal of our activities. It is an unconditional good, and happiness does not depend on external things, but rather on how things are used. Plato said, the life which is not examined is not worth living, and that gives us the clue. So happiness is something you have to look for. You have to make a kind of research. You just cannot feel it, or you cannot encounter it suddenly. Aristotle was convinced that there are certain conditions you need to gain happiness, and these are what he called virtues. Virtues are good habits. It's like, for example, courage. But you have to be careful. Don't go to an extreme. You always have to find the middle way. If you have good courage, you will do the right things with that. If you go to extreme, you put yourself into danger. If you have too little, you become too brave and you turn into a passive person. That goes for all virtues. Find the middle way. But these virtues, these good habits, give you a balance in your life. And only this balance will lead you to the ultimate goal of what life is about, or a good life. That is happiness. Aristotle once said, as it is not one swallow or one fine day that makes a spring, so it is not one day or a short time that makes a man blessed and happy. So happiness is a long way. Something you cannot achieve by coincidence or by feelings. Medieval philosophy tried to find a very different answer to these questions, and that is religion or God. The great philosopher Thomas von Aquin said this: since all creatures are ordered to God as an ultimate end, all achieve this end to the extent that they participate somewhat in his likeness. Intellectual creatures attain it in a special way, that is, through their proper operation of understanding him. Hence, this must be the end of the intellectual creature, namely to understand God. If you understand God, you find meaning of life. If you live your life under the guidance of God, you can find the answer to this question. Kant, as a modern philosopher, in a certain way, still followed this path of ancient Greek philosophy and medieval philosophy. He tried to find some kind of an objective truth. Kant said, all our knowledge begins with the senses, proceeds then to the understanding, and ends with reason. There is nothing higher than reason. So reason as the ultimate goal, and reason will find a moral, objective law. And this law will guide us. That's the categorical imperative. If you once understand this, and you give this law through your reason, you have found meaning of life. The first modern philosopher who completely breaks with that tradition is Friedrich Nietzsche. And there's one short quotation: God is dead. So Nietzsche was convinced that when God is dead, any form of outside source to find an answer to the question about the meaning of life can't be found there. Amor fati, he says, love your fate, which is in fact your life. This is what you have to do. You have to live your own life, your own particular life. You have to find out who you are, your true nature. Don't be restricted by value societies, norms. You have to overcome that. Heidegger is the philosopher who took this idea of Nietzsche to turn it into a systematic, philosophical idea. Heidegger was convinced, as he once says, sciences cannot think. You will not find any answer to the question about the meaning of life if you refer to sciences. You neither truly will find it in religion because, as Nietzsche said, God is dead. So look into yourself. As he once said, if I take death into my life, acknowledge it and face it squarely, I will free myself from the anxiety of death and the pettiness of life, and only then I will be free to become myself. I have to understand that my life, it's the existence which is only here this one time. And that means the meaning of my life is what we have to look for. Because only in this my life you can find an answer to the question of life itself. So maybe at the end we just can come back to Plato's quotation: the life which is not examined is not worth living. Philosophers, in particular modern philosophers, rather think about this question in terms of what you think, how you think about what you make out of your life. This is the first part of our mini-series, so let's see again with our second part.